Welcome to Mixed Combat Radio. It is Matt Hunter here today, riding solo again, previewing UFC 208, Holm versus Germaine De Randamie for the inaugural UFC Women's Featherweight title. I know, it's the Twilight Zone. I feel it. It's weird. But as Andrew Garcia says,
shit happens, man.
Shit happens. So, it's an odd thing in MMA when we get an inaugural title fight in any division, and especially in a title fight where the clear number one woman or person in that division is not fighting for the belt. Chris Cyborg is, dealing with a potential PED violation from USADA, and obviously I don't want to speculate on what that is because we have really no information about it. But I do want to sort of take that out of this show because, yes, I addressed it off the top of the bat. It's something that is of note. We need to address it. But these are fights. There's some good fights here, and even this fight itself is a good matchup. If this happened at 135, it would have been a good fight. And I think both fighters look extremely healthy at the weigh-ins today. And it was one of those things where I think that regardless of if it's for a belt, both these people deserve to be in a higher weight class just for health reasons. I think Holm is just a massive fighter for the bantamweight division. So is Germaine De Randamie. Randamie is massive. I mean, she is so tall for that division, and she just looks so much more healthy and less gaunt at the weigh-ins today compared to other weigh-ins. So I think overall it's healthy. If we're worried about fighters cutting weight and potentially hurting themselves, the fact that we're just opening up divisions is good. Yes, should women's flyweight have been more of a priority? 100%. It's a way deeper division. Even women's atomweight is a deeper division. But this fight is a good matchup. And again, I wanted to get sort of those big overarching context themes of this fight card that have sort of put a sour taste in most hardcore's mouths or even pundits' mouths. We do not like this card for some reason due to the fact that, of all things I said, number one female in this division is not fighting for the belt. It's a division that could have been opened up later after women's flyweight or women's atomweight because those are much deeper, more exciting divisions. But I digress because, like I said, this is a good matchup. And we're going to start off the bat and then work our way down. So if you want to get your Holm fix because you're a casual and your Anderson Silva fix, don't worry. There's the top two fights in the card. But Holm versus Germaine De Randamie is a style. If you like striking styles in MMA, you're going to love this fight. Because we have Holm, who is, in all intents and purposes, a kickboxer. I know she has a more renowned boxing pedigree, but in all actuality, her kickboxing game is so much better than her pure boxing. She likes to stay on her front foot. Almost 60% of her weight is on her front foot. 80% of her weight is on her front foot. Like, a lot of her weight is on that front foot. You don't see boxers usually have that. Again, I think her kicks are better than her punches. I think she's just overall smarter and more willing to pull the trigger on her kicks than she is her punches. I always get a sense that she uses her jab, her left crush because she's a southpaw, all in a way to get her opponent sort of thinking about the hand in a way, and then boom, hit him with a kick. And that kick is really what she hopes to land. The punches are all setups. All of her punches are setup punches. Take the Ronda Rousey fight out of the equation because we know Ronda Rousey's striking defense and just engagement of range and distance with striking was just atrocious, and it's always been that way. And she never got that fixed. We know that. We knew that during the Holm fight. We get that confirmed with Amanda Nunes. But I digress. So Holm, she is a woman that likes to be on the back foot. She likes to, like I said, use those punches to set up kicks on the back foot. Circle around, hope to land a huge head kick, And that's really her game. I don't see a lot of variety in her striking. I don't see a lot of different gears. I think that she looked so fantastic in that Ronda Rousey fight. And she looked so fantastic leading up to the UFC that when we saw the Ronda Rousey fight, I think we just assumed that's the version of Holly Holm. That's it. And then when you look at her other UFC fights so far, the loss to Miesha Tate, the loss to Valentina Shevchenko, the wins over Valerie Latuno, and who was it, Shayna Baszler? No, it wasn't Shayna Baszler. It was... Oh, it's going to bug me. I'm going to look it up. I'm so sorry about this. Off the top of my head, I should have this. But Germaine De Randamie, as I look up Holly Holm, De Randamie is another pure Muay Thai kickboxer. Again, her striking's a little more Muay Thai. She likes to get in the clinch more. She likes to throw knees more and elbows more. And overall, she's just a different style of striking. Or even just a different style altogether. She's an aggressive, come forward, swarming sort of Muay Thai striker, while Holly Holm is the person that likes to be on the back foot, on her bicycle, throwing a jab, double jab, feints, and then try to land that one solid head kick. That's Holly Holm's game. So, stylistically, this fight's awful for Holly Holm. Like, truly, truly terrifying that the fact that for some reason they thought this was a good idea. That they thought, yeah, let's throw Holly Holm in the main event with this title shot against this mid-level bantamweight, who's an aggressive, really good striker, and let's see if that works. Let's see if that gets her going. Because I think that the thought behind the matchmaker's idea is that Germaine De Randamie is going to force Holly Holm to counter more often and really show off her skill, the same way that Rashad Evans forced Lyoto Machida to show off his true countering ability. I think that's sort of the intent. Does that actually happen in reality? I'm very doubtful, because in all actuality, both these people have huge technical flaws in their overall MMA game. The only problem is that it's the same flaw for both of them. They are awful on their back, and they have no idea what to do. Their grappling's atrocious. And neither one can exploit that flaw in the other. It's not like Holly Holm has some secret great wrestling background. Neither does Germaine De Randamie. Neither of these people have really looked excellent in grappling. So how, I cannot perceive either one to exploit the other in that flaw. That's not going to happen, in my opinion. So we're going to get almost a cancellation of the ground, because neither one really wants to be on the ground. Now we might see one of them get hurt and try to take it to the ground. That's very likely, but that's not going to be a game plan. Neither of these female combatants in this event are going to look for the ground. That's not how they fight. It's not their style. It's not their strength, and it's their biggest weakness for both of them. So I think that, this fight's just really hard to pick, because I've heard really excellent breakdowns from great pundits siding with Holly Holm, siding with Germaine De Randamie, and it's one of those where it's a fight. I don't know, man. It's just one of those fights.
Shit happens, man.
I think Germaine De Randamie is going to surprise a lot of people. I think she's just so aggressive, and she's footwork is really good at entering range and getting out of range. I think Holly Holm has just too few of gears. I think Holly Holm, we've never seen her in a dogfight with a good striker. We just haven't. Valentina Shevchenko just counter-struck her the whole time. And we know Germaine De Randamie is not going to do that. So it's very intriguing. I'm going to go with Germaine De Randamie, probably by KO or TKO, second or third round. But again, if Holly Holm comes out here and looks amazing and looks to be the great counter striker that we all thought she was after the Ronda Rousey fight, I wouldn't be shocked. But I just don't see it happening. It's one of those matchups where when it was first thought up and dreamt up, it was like, oh, perfect. Germaine De Randamie is a striker. Holly Holm's a striker. We need Holly Holm, who's for some, very, very rarely in MMA do we get a fighter beating a fighter and then somehow getting some shine of stardom passed on to them. That just doesn't happen to MMA like it does in boxing. But when Holly Holm beat Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm became almost a household name as well. Holly Holm became very famous, So I think this was dreamt up and thought of at the initial stage of, let's give Holly Holm a tune-up against this mid-level bantamweight who's a striker. Not realizing that this striker, mid-level bantamweight that they're talking about, has a perfect style to beat Holly Holm in the stand-up. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a really good fight. I cannot wait to see it, regardless of the context of this fight happening and the title and all that bullshit, because we can all agree that that's bullshit. We can. But let's just talk about how good of a fight this is and how it's a good 5-round fight. I think we need to be positive, because I know people always come and ask me, please tell me why you always hate. Please tell me why you always hate. And I know I'm a hater. I know. But I'm trying to be more positive. Ness from TBV has told me you got to be more positive. So I'm trying to be more positive. Now, in the co-main event, we got Anderson the Spider Silva trying to make a comeback against Derek Brunson, who's also coming off a loss against Robert Whittaker. Anderson Silva obviously stepped in on short notice for John Jones and fought Daniel Cormier at UFC 200. Man, this fight's weird. I'll be honest. If Derek Brunson goes in there and just bull rushes Anderson Silva, just dumps him on his head, beats him up, I kind of view that as the more likely option at this point in time. Though we cannot dispute what we saw when he fought Robert Whittaker, and that Derek Brunson just looked atrocious. I mean, head so far low and so far in front of his feet that a counter striker like Anderson, if he just boom lands that single shot, flying knee, switch kick, whatever it is, that iced Derek Brunson, then yeah, that's Anderson Silva doing Anderson Silva like things, But again, I think that the Anderson Silva we see nowadays is a greatly diminished one, who lacks cardio, who now is stuck to throwing single shots. His combinations aren't there. His defense isn't there. His reflexes aren't there. Man, this is a really tough fight to predict, and it's interesting because I think Derek Brunson, if he's able to make it a grappling affair, if he's able to make it about wrestling, I think Derek Brunson could win this easily and beat up Anderson Silva in the process. That makes all fans sort of wince at their TVs. So, but then again, I can see Anderson Silva landing a shot and putting him out. But again, that's Anderson Silva. I mean, of course we see that. He has a huge history of doing that. So, of course, as a pundit, as a fan, I'm even sort of caught up in the mystique of Anderson Silva still. It's still there. Whether we know he's diminished or not, because we do know that. We do realize he's diminished. But we saw, like, in the fight with Daniel Cormier, he landed some good shots in Daniel Cormier. He obviously, some people thought he beat Michael Bisping. Obviously, he pretty much put him out on his ass with that flying knee in the third round. So, Anderson Silva is just an enigma in the division. I think this fight's obviously going to do some clearing up of what he is at this point. Similar with Derek Brunson, we don't know where he's at. We don't know if excuse me. We don't know if he's a uber prospect. We don't know if he's a real contender or pretender. We don't know about Derek Brunson. I think this fight's going to be interesting on so many levels about that. Style-wise, again, or technique-wise, if Anderson Silva, it's weird because Anderson Silva does some of his best work, obviously, with his back up against the fence. But that's also where Derek Brunson needs this fight to be, to bully him, take him down, beat him up, do some dirty boxing. I don't know. It's going to be a very, very interesting fight. I mean, I'm going to go with Derek Brunson. And, man, it's weird because I've picked against Anderson Silva a lot, and he's always proved me wrong. So, Anderson, if you prove me wrong again, hats off to you, man. You're still a legend, even though you take a clear, vial, liquid, penis enlargers from Thailand. We don't care. We still love you in a way. It's no problem. No problem. The next fight, Ronaldo Souza, or Jacare Souza, is fighting Tim Boetsch in a clear tune-up. But I believe I saw it from Mike Bond from MMA Junkie. And he came out with a stat that Tim Boetsch, as an underdog in the UFC, is 5-2 or something like that. And that's insane. Tim Boetsch as an underdog always seems to have performed, seems to have got the knockout. He's obviously a bruiser with his hands. Jacare Souza is obviously getting up there in years. He's like 37 now. He's old. He's been in the game for a long time. He's always seemed to me a little bit stiff, a little bit robotic. Never really one to throw combinations. Never one to really wow me on the feet, other than some one-punch knockout sort of stuff, And then again, his grappling is legit. His grappling is insane. If he gets it to the floor, it's going to be Jacare Souza, hands down. If it stays on the feet, Tim Boetsch could maybe do something there. Well, of course, I'm going to Jacare. Jacare should win this by the second round. I'm going to probably submission second round. I just think he's just the overall better fighter. Again, Tim Boetsch is always a live dog, so be prepared for that. If he goes out there and just ices Jacare Souza and reestablishes himself as a contender, it's what Tim Boetsch does. Tim Boetsch is the Luis Collazo of the UFC middleweight division. Fact. The next fight, Glover Teixeira versus Cannonier. This fight's weird. I may pick Glover slightly. It's one of those fights that it looks to be a tune-up. Like, it looks to be that way, but I don't know. I'm going to go Glover Teixeira by knockout. I think he has the better boxing technique. I think the wrestling is null and void. I think he's going to land a good hook or something like that and put out Cannonier. But again, Glover Teixeira hasn't looked great recently. He hasn't. He's looked like a diminished form. He looks like a much older form. And again, he's one of those case studies of a person that entered the UFC very late into their career, obviously due to some ridiculous visa issues. But, just one of those things. So I think that we're going to see Glover Teixeira win. I think he's going to win and probably a first-round knockout, personally. But it's one of those fights that it's going to be, oh, wow, that's awesome. But it's one of those you have to realize in the context of it, he didn't really beat anyone. Jared Cannonier hasn't beat anyone yet. But if Jared Cannonier went in there and did good for him. If he went in there won a 30-27 or went in there and iced Glover Teixeira, good for him. We have a new sort of contender in a way at the light heavyweight division, which we always need. So, but again, going Glover Teixeira. And I believe the next fight is the pay-per-view main card opener, Dustin Poirier versus Jim Miller, a fantastic fight in the UFC lightweight division. Dustin Poirier coming off. Oh, who do you lose to? Why am I drawing a blank? He beat up Bobby Green, and then that's right. He lost to Michael Johnson. Knockout. That's when Michael Johnson looked amazing. God, that was a brutal knockout. It's all coming back to me. I didn't watch that fight for film study because, there's no point watching a first round loss for the guy when you're watching tape. I'd rather see fights where he wants to implement his game. Anyways, I digress. Dustin Poirier's boxing has always been top notch in my mind for MMA. Yes, he has not, I'm going to say a chin issue, because that's not what it is. He's been hit hard a lot of times, and then there's sometimes he just goes out. Like Conor McGregor, obviously with Michael Johnson, Cub Swanson obviously took it to him. Korean Zombie, I believe dropped him a couple times. So I think Dustin Poirier is just one of those guys that he's always going to be able to get hurt. Like that's just his thing, and he can recover. He has great recovery ability, but sometimes when he gets iced, he goes down and he's done. And I think you have to be a very fast, athletic striker to beat Dustin Poirier. I don't see, or just somebody that's just more tougher than him. Somebody that can just out-gruel him like a Korean Zombie. But for a guy like Jim Miller, who's smaller, has the shorter reach, less developed striking, good clinch elbows standing, but nothing that wows me or I think the fans when it comes to striking. His boxing is not tremendous. It's suitable for getting in good action brawls and trying to set up scrambles to go to the ground and set up a choke or an armbar. But again, I think Dustin Poirier is equally good or gifted or slick on the ground. So I think wherever this fight goes, Dustin Poirier is just a little bit better. So I think Dustin Poirier is going to really look tremendous in this fight, in a style matchup that should suit him in almost every way, in an entertaining fight for the pay-per-view opener. Now, I'm going to go through very quickly the rest of the card, offer my picks, very brief analysis of the fights, because this is just a solo show. I really didn't plan on doing this. I plan on doing a review show just because of my time, but I want to do a preview show for you guys, especially you Patreon supporters. I thank you guys so much. But Randy Brown versus Belal Muhammad. Randy Brown, I believe, is a injury replacement opponent. And Randy Brown's one of those guys who he's always intrigued me because he's one of those guys who came in with a quote-unquote boxing background who had no jab. Patrick Ryman and Conor Boetsch were discussing this on their Heavy Hands podcast, the fact that Randy Brown just never has that jab. So that concerns me. Watching some tape of him, I'm not really sold on his striking. I think Belal Muhammad should come in there and win pretty handily in a good scrap. Wilson Reyes versus Yuto Sasaki. I'm going to go with Wilson Reyes. I think he is, he was supposed to fight Demetrius Johnson, and that whole fight fell through, which is weird. That was just such a weird thing that happened. But I like Wilson Reyes. I think he's a talented fighter, and I think he's probably going to go in there and beat up UT Sasaki. So if he doesn't, he doesn't, because I really haven't seen that much tape on Sasaki, so that'd be big coming out for him. The next fight is Islam Makhachev versus Nick Lentz. Nick Lentz should be able to make this a grind fest. I still think Nick Lentz is one of the most underrated grapplers in MMA. Not entertaining in any way as well, but he should go in there and win 29-28 scorecard. Ian McCall, it seems like he's finally going to have a fight. Like, this is weird. It's been just a injury replacement, another injury over and over again for the last year or so for Ian McCall. He's had, I believe it was like 7 different opponents scheduled in the last 12 months. That's insane to me. And he still hasn't had a fight. So he's fighting Jared Brooks. I don't know much about Jared Brooks, to be honest. Ian McCall, I'm still a huge fan of him. I'm going to go with him 30-27. Maybe he gets a choke. I hopefully he doesn't break his hands again. Ian McCall, to me, is always one of the biggest what-ifs in UFC history because of the nature of his first fight with Demetrius Johnson. That should have been a draw and should have gone to sudden death round, and he most likely very well could have been the first UFC flyweight champion. It's just one of those things. You know, it's Ian McCall has lived a hard life. He's a hard man, and he's dug his own grave at times, you know, but he continues to earn, I think, all of our respect and all of our appreciation because he does bring excitement to that division. He's always been a character, you know, and he's always been brutally honest about himself, the UFC, the fighters around him, just the culture around him. He's always been, I think, a great insight into MMA as a whole. So I have nothing but appreciation for Ian McCall. I hope he wins this fight. Then we have Marcin Tybura versus Justin Willis. I'm going to go with Justin Willis. But who cares? It's the opener, you know. Oh, that's not the opener. My bad. It's just one of those fights that I really don't care, to be honest. But I'm going to go with Justin Willis. Who cares? Ryan LaFleur versus Rohan Canero. I'm going to go with LaFleur. I still think he's an enigma in that division. He can still give most of the guys problems. Just obviously a little bit unrefined, a little bit untechnical. But I still favor him in this fight. And Philippe Novaire versus Rick Glenn. I'm gonna go Rick Glenn just for the fuck of it, because Philippe Novaire is a funny story and a funny person in MMA history. So I'm just gonna go with the upset there. I'm gonna go with Rick Glenn. Why not? No particular reason whatsoever. But hold on one second. No, that's it. That is it. We're gonna head out of here. It's been a good one. It is 12:30 p.m. Western Pacific Standard Time. And for all you guys out there that are gonna watch the Showbox card tonight, that are gonna watch, what else do we have? The Bounce TV card tonight with Robbie Jr. versus Luis Cruz or something like that. I don't know who he's fighting. Who cares? And Rashid Warren fighting Zanat Zakakov. Should be a good fight. Then we got Ivan Baranchik also on the Showbox card. He's on the Showbox card, and the other fights on Bounce TV. That should be entertaining. I cannot wait to see Ivan Baranchik again. I think he's a hot prospect. And then obviously we have Ring TV tomorrow. We have BN Sports tomorrow. The return of Antonio DeMarco. Which, God, I don't even want to really bring any sort of press on that because he shouldn't be fighting. Sorry, Antonio DeMarco. You brought us entertaining fights, but worry about your safety. And then obviously we have UFC 208, which we previewed on this show. I hope you enjoy it. You can find us at Mixed Combat News on Twitter, Mixed Combat Radio on Patreon, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, etc. We'll be back either Saturday night with the show, which will probably be out Sunday morning, to be honest, or Sunday morning and have that out Sunday for a review of UFC 208, Holly Holm versus Germaine De Randamie. It's been a great one. I hope you guys have a great day. Travel safe on this weekend. Do not drink and drive. Have a good one. Peace.